Some neighbors say their community is becoming completely unrecognizable. Donald Trump has concluded that the United States will achieve its goals regarding Iran's nuclear program, missiles, and proxy networks, whether or not a new agreement is reached. Mohammad Javad Akbarian of the Iran International editorial team says the Islamic Republic is now severely weakened in those areas. Akbarian notes that the Iranian people no longer equate the regime with the nation, suggesting the government has lost control over national affairs.
محمد جواد اکبریان در خصوص همین خبر امروز اینجا که نشستیم داریم با هم صحبت میکنیم 175 روز از جنگ گذشته. در تمام این مدت ترامپ بارها اومده از جنگ حرف زده، از صلح حرف زده، تا امروز که رسیدیم به این خبر که میگه تهران آمادگی مذاکره نداره. آیا واقعا فکر میکنه یک روزی فرا میرسه که جمهوری اسلامی آمادگی مذاکره داره؟
ترامپ به این نتیجه رسیده که برای جمهوری اسلامی بسیار خطرناکه. به این نتیجه رسیده که با توافق یا بدون توافق آمریکا به خواسته خودش میرسه. با توافق به این معنا که خواسته های خودش رو یعنی در 3 حوزه هسته‌ای، موشکی، نیابتی تحمیل میکنه به جمهوری اسلامی و در نتیجه جمهوری اسلامی اسمش میمونه، محتواش تغییر میکنه. با توافق. بدون توافق از طریق جنگ و حاشیه‌های جنگ موفق میشه این مانع رو از سر راه منطقه و جهان برداره. به همین خاطره که فکر میکنه اگر کسانی باشن در داخل جمهوری اسلامی که بترسند از آیندهشون، اونها ممکنه صحنه رو به دست بگیرن و آمادگی برای توافق پیدا کنن. به عبارتی او در حال تنبیه و آماده سازیه همزمان با همدیگه. ببینید چند تا حرف میزنه بسیار مهمه. یکی این که به صورت انگار یک مشکل مطرح میکنه، میگه اینا رهبرانشون معلوم نیست کیان، یعنی معلوم نیست ما داریم با کی مذاکره میکنیم. این مشکله که ما نمیدونیم رهبر کیه و کجاست و نمیتونیم باهاش مذاکره کنیم. این مشکل رو کی ایجاد کرده؟ خود دونالد ترامپ ایجاد کرده. در حمله آمریکا و اسرائیل رهبرانی رو زدن که بدون اونها تصمیم گیری سخت بشه. به عبارتی آمدانه این رهبران رو زدن تا به این نقطه برسن. بنابراین ما با یک بلا تکلیفی هدایت شده مواجهیم. ما با بلا تکلیفی سرگردان که ندونند آیندهش چیه مواجه نیستیم. اتفاقا این بلا تکلیفی آگاهانه ایجاد شده با زدن سران. نکته دیگه ای که هست اینه که هل دادن جمهوری اسلامی رو به بازی روی لبه تیغ. بردنش جایی روی لبه پرتگاه مثلا بگیم. بردنش جایی که با کوچکترین اشتباه میتونه همین مقدار تعادلی که الان داره رو از دست بده. به عنوان نمونه الان جمهوری اسلامی بلغارستان رو تهدید کرده. چجوری؟ گفته من مواضع آمریکا رو در اونجا میزنم. ناتو رو وارد ماجرا کرده. ما الان با یک رویارویی احتمالی ناتو و جمهوری اسلامی طرفیم. کشورهای منطقه حتی یک دوست دیگه جمهوری اسلامی نداره که هیچ. وقتی قالیباف رفته عراق ما صحنه‌هایی رو می‌بینیم که هرگز قبلش ندیدیم. بنابراین من فکر می‌کنم که دونالد ترامپ در آمریکا دچار مخمسه بزرگیه. اسرائیلی ها هم دچار گرفتاری ها هستند، اما آنچه که ما داریم می‌بینیم اینه که اینها از کنترل خارج نیست، هدایت شده است. اتفاق نظری وجود داره در منطقه و جهان و اون اینه که حتما این جمهوری اسلامی باید از سر راه برداشته بشه، یا با تغییر محتوایی یا با پاکسازی صورت مسئله.
در خصوص وضعیت جمهوری اسلامی صحبت کردید. خوبه که بدونیم که آیا حالا با این روشی که جمهوری اسلامی در پیش گرفته اون سیاست همیشگی که نه جنگ نه صلح رو همچنان میتونه پیش ببره؟
ممکنه دچار توهمی بعضیا باشند از جنس توهم
President Trump says Iran is beginning to come around as his administration prepares a new wave of economic pressure on Tehran. The president stated that previous Iranian leaders are gone, leaving him unsure who to deal with, while Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian suggested it may be time to end the war. Iran's parliamentary speaker is maintaining a defiant tone.
The Trump administration says it's ready to unleash maximum economic pressure on Iran. Jonathan Hunt joins us now from Tel Aviv with the latest. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning to you guys. In response to those comments from President Trump, Iran issuing a new predictably belligerent statement today, suggesting that Gulf neighbors are already looking forward towards a new post-war order that might sideline the U.S. The parliamentary speaker, Mohammed Ghalibaf, saying on X today, quote, "We've received numerous messages from neighboring countries about shaping new security arrangements and economic cooperation in the region. The United States put the security of every single one of its allies at such risk through bullying and pure disregard for their interests for the sake of Israel." Now, the economic pressure is beginning to bite in Iran. There is no doubt about that. And therefore, Ghalibaf's comments are not uniformly shared. In fact, Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, said just yesterday that it might be time to, quote, "end the war today." President Trump picked up on that. He obviously hopes that the moderate wing of the leadership in Iran will ultimately be the one that wins out. Here's President Trump.
They are now coming around because there's not much they can say. When a country doesn't have any longer a Navy, an Air Force, radar, technical equipment, manufacturing, their leaders are gone, their second set of leaders are gone, parts of their third set of the leaders are gone. In fact, it's actually one of my biggest problems. I don't know who the hell to deal with. It's a problem.
Now, on Monday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will lay out a whole new raft of sanctions to isolate Iran. That won't be easy as you look at the map there. Iran shares borders, land borders, with 7 different countries, not all of whom are sympathetic to the United States. To the north there, you see the Caspian Sea. That gives them a direct route into and out of Russia. There's also increasing use of rail links over land to China. So it will be interesting, guys, to see on Monday what proposals Scott Bessent may lay out for getting Russia and China on board with a new sanctions regime. Those two, of course, have very little interest in helping the U.S.
16 million barrels of oil moved through the Strait of Hormuz overnight. According to a report from Axios, those numbers nearly match flow levels seen before the war. The report says President Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth have put Iran in a state of shock while gaining control over the strait to resolve oil supply issues. Axios also reports that Iran will not be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon. Additionally, the outlet says Scott Bessent is expected to announce further developments this Monday.
Other places, in addition, a lot of pipelines, record numbers of pipelines are being built. So I think the Hormuz Strait is not going to be quite as important as it was in the past.
Iran's oil exports have plummeted to about 1/7 of pre-war levels. Data from the shipping analytics firm Kepler shows the drop follows the imposition of a U.S. naval blockade. According to the report, Iran has loaded approximately 287,000 barrels of crude oil per day since the beginning of the month of Mordad. Before the war began, that figure was around 2 million barrels per day. A major blow to Iran's tourism industry. The head of the Tehran Travel Agencies Trade Association says a large number of the country's travel agencies have been forced to close. Beirut Safari reports that preliminary assessments show nearly 2 trillion tomans in damages. Officials say the losses are a direct result of the recent war and its economic consequences. Human rights advocates are calling for urgent international attention for Hossein Hagparast, a father who is facing the risk of execution in Iran. Supporters say Hagparast was falsely accused of espionage. They are now urging the global community to speak out against the charges and call for his release. Ukrainian long-range drones struck an OZON logistics center in the Samara region of Russia this morning. The attack targeted a facility in the town of Chapayevsk. Reports indicate the building, which measures 135,000 square meters, is burning to the ground. Details on casualties or the full extent of the damage are still emerging.
Охуеть. Нет, в навак полетел. Охуеть.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is courting Elon Musk to bring a Tesla Gigafactory to the Sunshine State. The governor says he is game to have the electric vehicle giant establish a major manufacturing presence in Florida. Details on a potential deal have not been released, and it is unclear if Musk has responded to the invitation. President Trump says construction is surging on a new military complex and ballroom at the White House. The project comes after approval from the Supreme Court. The president states the work will cost taxpayers $0. He says funding is being provided entirely by private companies and patriots. President Trump described the progress as tremendous. He noted that leaders have sought such a facility for 150 years to enhance national security in the Capitol.
Good mood tonight. I didn't mention this to Darlene because today we just learned that the big decision of the United States Supreme Court came down and the military/ballroom, this beautiful, magnificent complex, being built on the hallowed grounds of our cherished White House, which is so vital for national security, it's going to be the greatest of its kind anywhere that's ever been built, and it's something that presidents have wanted to be built for over 150 years. You know, we have a tiny little room right now. It's been that way for years. It's called the East Room, and it seats 88 people. And as an example, in 2 weeks, President Xi of China is coming, and I wish we had a ballroom, but in a very short period of time, in a year from now, you'll have one of the greatest anywhere in the world. And the military is being taken care of because of the military component for drones and for missiles and for bulletproof glass and for all of the things that you've needed. The military's wanted this done for 100 years, and presidents have wanted it done for 150 years. So I just want to thank the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice, and we have a ruling that it's proceed. When they say proceed, I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Nothing's easy today. And our construction is under budget and ahead of schedule. I always build under budget and ahead of schedule. And we build more beautiful than anybody else. And we're going to get that highway built for you, too, by the way. We're going to get that built. So
7 people are dead in the United Kingdom after a vehicle traveling the wrong way struck a police car. Authorities say the crash happened when the vehicle entered a road against the flow of traffic. Emergency crews responded to the scene, but 7 individuals did not survive. Police are currently investigating the cause of the collision. Details on the identities of the victims have not yet been released. A former world boxing champion from South Africa has been shot and killed outside his home. Authorities say TETE was killed in the attack. Details regarding the motive or any suspects are not yet available. Police are continuing to investigate the incident. 16 million barrels of oil moved through the Strait of Hormuz overnight. According to a report from Axios, those numbers nearly match flow levels seen before the war. The report says President Trump and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth have put Iran in a state of shock while gaining control over the strait to resolve oil supply issues. Axios also reports that Iran will not be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon. Additionally, the outlet says Scott Bessent is expected to announce further developments this Monday.
other places. In addition, a lot of pipelines, record numbers of pipelines are being built. So I think the Hormuz Strait is not going to be quite as important as it was in the past.
A major blow to Iran's tourism industry. The head of the Tehran Travel Agencies Trade Association says a large number of the country's travel agencies have been forced to close. Beirut Safari reports that preliminary assessments show nearly 2 trillion tomans in damages. Officials say the losses are a direct result of the recent war and its economic consequences. Human rights advocates are calling for urgent international attention for Hossein Hagparast, a father who is facing the risk of execution in Iran. Supporters say Hagparast was falsely accused of espionage. They are now urging the global community to speak out against the charges and call for his release. Iran's oil exports have plummeted to about 1/7 of pre-war levels. Data from the shipping analytics firm Kepler shows the drop follows the imposition of a U.S. naval blockade. According to the report, Iran has loaded approximately 287,000 barrels of crude oil per day since the beginning of the month of Mordad. Before the war began, that figure was around 2 million barrels per day. President Trump says Iran is beginning to come around as his administration prepares a new wave of economic pressure on Tehran. The president stated that previous Iranian leaders are gone, leaving him unsure who to deal with, while Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian suggested it may be time to end the war. Iran's parliamentary speaker is maintaining a defiant tone.
The Trump administration says it's ready to unleash maximum economic pressure on Iran. Jonathan Hunt joins us now from Tel Aviv with the latest. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning to you guys. In response to those comments from President Trump, Iran issuing a new predictably belligerent statement today, suggesting that Gulf neighbors are already looking forward towards a new post-war order that might sideline the U.S. The parliamentary speaker, Mohammed Ghalibaf, saying on X today, quote, "We've received numerous messages from neighboring countries about shaping new security arrangements and economic cooperation in the region. The United States put the security of every single one of its allies at such risk through bullying and pure disregard for their interests for the sake of Israel." Now, the economic pressure is beginning to bite in Iran. There is no doubt about that. And therefore, Ghalibaf's comments are not uniformly shared. In fact, Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, said just yesterday that it might be time to, quote, "end the war today." President Trump picked up on that. He obviously hopes that the moderate wing of the leadership in Iran will ultimately be the one that wins out. Here's President Trump.
They are now coming around because there's not much they can say. When a country doesn't have any longer a Navy, an Air Force, radar, technical equipment, manufacturing, their leaders are gone, their second set of leaders are gone, parts of their third set of the leaders are gone. In fact, it's actually one of my biggest problems. I don't know who the hell to deal with. It's a problem.
Now, on Monday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will lay out a whole new raft of sanctions to isolate Iran. That won't be easy as you look at the map there. Iran shares borders, land borders, with 7 different countries, not all of whom are sympathetic to the United States. To the north there, you see the Caspian Sea. That gives them a direct route into and out of Russia. There's also increasing use of rail links over land to China. So it will be interesting, guys, to see on Monday what proposals Scott Bessent may lay out for getting Russia and China on board with a new sanctions regime. Those two, of course, have very little interest in helping the U.S.
Former ICE Director Tom Homan is pushing back against claims that immigration enforcement targets people of color. During a confrontation with Florida Senate candidate Angie Nixon, Homan stated he is an equal opportunity deporter. He noted that people were deported to 180 different countries last year. Homan told the candidate that anyone in the country illegally will be deported, regardless of their skin color. He further asserted that the agency does not use racial profiling, claiming arrests are based on reason.
Ridiculous statement. Look, we don't racially profile. Everybody we talk to, we have reasonable suspicion of aliens to talk to them and to arrest them when need probable cause. That's what the law says, and that's what we do. We don't arrest people based on the color of their skin. I'm actually an equal opportunity deporter. I deported people to 180 countries last year. So I don't care if you're from Asia, you're from Europe, or you're from other countries. If you're in the country legally, you'll be deported, regardless of the color of your skin.
Tom, we are...
A Democrat-appointed judge has overturned a verdict against James O'Keefe. The ruling is a victory for the First Amendment and protects undercover journalists who misrepresent their identities to uncover the truth. This decision comes as new lawsuits and laws are being developed to target figures like O'Keefe and Nick Shirley. Supporters of the journalists say those efforts will not succeed.
Today, my faith in the future of journalism and in our courts is restored. In my entire life, I've only lost one case at jury verdict 4 years ago. Well, today, that case has just been overturned by the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, Democracy Partners versus O'Keefe. This case has profound impact on the First Amendment and undercover journalism at large, the right of an undercover journalist to misrepresent themselves in order to bring you the truth. This order just published a 2-to-1 vote in the Federal Court of Appeals. Democratically appointed judges ruling in our favor on the First Amendment. Judge Karen LaCraft Henderson framed the central constitutional question directly: whether a jury could impose damages that, in substance, punished us for publishing a news story. Now, the Court of Appeals' answer was no. It held that the First Amendment prohibited the award because the protected content of our reporting, not legally actionable conduct, was the principal cause of the economic losses for which the people sued us for. Now, this is a tremendous victory, not just for us, but for every journalist who takes on powerful people, and for your First Amendment rights. And credit to my appellate lawyer, the best lawyer I've ever known, constitutional litigator Ben Barr, for this victory in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, which is probably a bigger victory than the Supreme Court. Ben Barr is on the phone. Ben, what an amazing job. My team is overwhelmed. Can you give us your reaction to this panel voting 2-to-1 in your favor?
Thanks for having me on, James. Yeah, this is the kind of First Amendment decision that's going to outlive the controversy, because long after the names of it and the politics of it fade away, its principle is going to remain. Americans can't be punished by civil damages for the consequences of speech the Constitution protects. I mean, think about it. Our founders thought about the right of the press and the right of free speech to be indispensable to maintaining the republic, to be able to securing our freedoms. That's what we did today, and we showed that undercover journalism is fully protected by the First Amendment. We'll continue to win on these sorts of cases where the powerful institutions push back and wish that the truth weren't told by you.
And one question, Ben, for people not familiar with the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court, a lot of those justices appointed by Republicans, but do I understand it right that one of the judges, can you talk about the makeup of the two judges who ruled in your favor?
Yeah. So we have a Carter appointee, Judge Henderson, who ruled fully in your favor. But I'll also note that Judge Wilkinson, who is in dissent and joined part of the concurrence, agreed with part of our theory too. So we have all three judges, 2 Democrats and 1 Republican, agreeing at least in part or about halfway on what we presented. And we have 2 of the 3 agreeing with everything. First Amendment wins, investigative reporting and journalism fully protected. Ben Barr, the great constitutional litigator, Ben Barr, with the biggest victory of my life. If we had lost this case, Ben, we would have been on the hook for potentially millions of dollars. Millions of dollars in fees for attorney fees for recording, and a 6-figure sum for the fraudulent misrepresentation. You just can't have effective journalism with those sorts of damages hanging over the heads of journalists, not in a free society. But this is as important or more important case as Food Lion was 30 years ago. But this is now the O'Keefe principle, and we're proud to be able to preserve that and push these sorts of cases forward, James.
I want my audience to know Ben is the greatest lawyer I've ever known, and he has done something extraordinary, and we're very grateful. Thank you, Ben. Talk soon.
You're the best reporter out there. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you, Ben. Talk soon. Some background for those who don't remember. This story we got sued for was 9 years, actually, no, it was 10 years ago. Next month. I was sued in 2017 after breaking the biggest story of my career. Those were the 2016 presidential election, rigging the election videos involving Bob Creamer and Democracy Partners and Scott Foval. Individuals in the tapes said that Hillary Clinton, quote, knew through the chain of command what was going on, that there were these bird dogging things happening at Trump rallies, inciting violence at Trump rallies, and then blaming it on Trump. Here's a little flashback of Anderson Cooper covering it and CNN covering it, for those who don't remember those videos.
Video emerging of a group of pro-Clinton political operatives talking about stirring up trouble and provoking violence at Trump rallies. The video comes from Project Veritas, brainchild of James O'Keefe, who's got a less than stellar reputation for accuracy. However, some of the things you'll hear on the tape are certainly hard to ignore. Enough we're learning for one person to be fired.
It doesn't matter what the frickin' legal and ethics people say. We need to win this motherfucker.
If you're there and you're protesting and you do these actions, you will be attacked at Trump rallies. That's what we know.
There's a script.
Okay.
There's a script of engagement. Sometimes the crazies bite and sometimes the crazies don't bite.
Hillary is aware of all the work that you guys do, I hope.
The campaign is fully integrated.
And then they tell Hillary what's going on.
Well, Hillary knows who shit in your hand.
Yeah.
The campaign pays DNC. DNC pays Democracy Partners. Democracy Partners pays the Fogle Group. The Fogle Group goes and executes the shit on the ground.
I'm not suggesting we wait around. We need to start this shit right away.
You know what? We've been busting people into deep fucking assholes for 50 years, and we're not going to stop now. We're just going to find a different way to do it.
In the end, it was the candidate, Hillary Clinton, the future president of the United States, who wanted ducks on the ground. So by God, we will get ducks on the ground.
So it's... Wow.
Don't repeat that tape. Wow. Don't repeat that tape.
And here's a clip of Donald Trump bringing those videos up in front of 70 million people at the debate with Hillary Clinton.
I have a feeling how they came. I believe it was her campaign that did it. Just like if you look at what came out today on the clips, where I was wondering what happened with my rally in Chicago and other rallies where we had such violence. She's the one in Obama that caused the violence. They hired people, they paid them $1,500, and they're on tape saying, be violent, cause fights, do bad things.
Now, this video was on the front page of the New York Times, but I got sued in 2017, 9 years ago, for exposing this. The issues before Your Honor were breach of fiduciary duty and fraudulent misrepresentation. You might be asking, how can an investigative reporter owe a duty to the subject they investigate? Well, that's a great question, but it's an unsettled area in the law. The only other case was involving Food Lion Grocery in the 1990s, when undercover reporters got jobs at the grocery store and exposed the rotting meat and the bad conditions of the food. ABC News lost that in the 1990s, and it went to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in North Carolina 30 years ago, and it remained unsettled. Now, the main issue in all these cases that I'm involved in is whether the people who lose their jobs as a result of the stuff that they say, is the loss of their job due to us misrepresenting ourselves in costumes and so forth, or is it due to what they said and did? Now, obviously, it's due to what they said and did. And in America, we have a First Amendment. A journalist cannot be held liable for what they publish so long as it's true. If our reporting causes someone to lose their job, well, that's not our fault. In fact, that's our right to report it. The First Amendment should protect our right to report their wrongdoing. And that is what was at stake in this case, and in all the cases currently against me. They're trying to hold a reporter liable for reporting facts about what they do wrong, and they get punished for what they've done wrong. I've documented it. Now, in this case, a woman named Lauren Windsor went around and recruited all these people to sue me. This was 10 years ago. I've won all those cases except this one until today. But I want you to know something, the most important thing. I have had to spend a decade of my life in court and millions of dollars raised through nonprofit donations defending myself. In fact, you see this logo here. You might be wondering, why is this on my wall? Project Veritas fired me from the company I created, in part because I spent resources defending this principle in federal court. And they fired me in part because a jury ruled against me, which has now been overturned. And that brings me to the next issue. This went to a jury trial in September of 2022, 4 years ago. The jury was hostile against me. This case at the jury trial wasn't about these issues. It was about, somehow it became about Trump versus Hillary Clinton. This case had nothing to do with Trump versus Hillary. This had to do with the First Amendment and my right to report facts. There was even a man on the jury who had worked alongside the Hillary Clinton campaign and said, when asked during voir dire, that's jury selection, if he's ever heard of me. And he said to the courtroom, "No, I've never heard of James O'Keefe." And as that man got off of the jury stand and walked back, he winked at me as if to say, "Yeah." And he lied under oath during jury selection. You see, I had to live through that. I had to endure all of this to get to this point, and
An oil market expert is warning that low-quality gasoline in Iran could be damaging vehicles. Mehdi Moslehi told Iran International that the low-octane rating of fuel at stations is a serious concern. He says the poor quality can lead to reduced acceleration and trigger vehicle warning lights. According to Moslehi, using this fuel may eventually cause permanent damage to various engine components.
مهدی مصلحی کارشناس بازار نفت همراه ما شدن. آقای مصلحی، شما برای ما بیشتر توضیح بدین از کیفیت بنزین تولیدی در داخل ایران تو شرایط فعلی. مردم نگرانن، هم نگران سلامتیشون هستن، هم نگران این هستن که خودروشون خراب بشه به خاطر بنزین بی‌کیفیت و یک هزینه اضافی به دوش خانواده‌ها بذاره.
با درود به شما و مردم دلاور ایران زمین. اجازه بدید که ابتدا بین دو موضوع تفاوت قائل بشیم. یکی گزارش‌ها، مشاهدات مردم و دیگری نتایج قطعی آزمایشگاهی و گزارش‌های خیلی زیادی هستش، همونطور که شما هم در صحبتتون گفتین که در مورد ناک زدن موتور یا هم ریپ زدن، افت شتاب، روشن شدن چراغ اخطار و خرابی قطعات مختلف ولی خب تا زمانی که یک سیستم، یک سازمان استاندارد یا یه آزمایشگاه مستقل نه یا نمونه‌های مختلف بنزین رو بیان بردارن و تست بکنن، نمیشه با قطعیت بگیم که چه میزان متانول یا هر ماده دیگه‌ای به بنزین اضافه شده. بنزین به هر حال یک ترکیب مهندسی شده است از چندین فراورده برای افزایش عدد اکتانش هست، مثل ریفورمیت و آلکالیت و ایزومیت و چیزایی که استانداردها از مواد اکسیژن دار استفاده کردن. مشکل زمانی هستش که حکومت شروع میکنه برای جبران کمبود بنزین، شروع میکنه این مواد مختلف رو بدون کنترل و حساب کتاب مشخصی از حدود مجاز بیشتر میره و تو شبکه کاملا توزیع میکنه. ببینید در مورد با متانول من بهتون میگم چیزی که تأثیری که داره این که متانول خیلی سریع در آب حل میشه و الکل رو جدا میکنه و ته مخزن بنزین میشینه و میتونه آب رو روی موتور خودرو ببره و باعث با ضایعات خیلی جدی به خودرو بشه. این یکی از مسائلی هستش که واقعا هست. ولی شما ببینید در سیستم فعلی ایران بنزین رو از پالایشگاه مختلف توزیع میشه و اینها هیچ حساب کتابی نیستش که حتی تو مخازن ذخیره چه سوختی بوده. مردم میگن که حتی تو جاهایی اکتان 57 رو دیدن، ولی ببینید این خودروها، چه خودرویی که اگر در داخل ایران منتاج بشه و چه وارد بشه، یکی از معضلاتش هستش اینه که به هر حال برای اکتان 95 شده، ولی حتی پالایشگاه میگن که ما داریم سعی میکنیم اکتان 87 رو برسونیم. خب به هر حال تو همینجا نشون داده این هستش که به هر حال یک تفاوتی از فاصله‌ای هست بین اون استاندارد حداقلی که اون خودروها میخوان و اون چیزی که داره توزیع میشه و این قطعاً باعث صدمات به خودرو میشه.
آقای مصلحی، شاهزاده رضا پهلوی هم حکومت رو مقصر این بحران دونسته. خیلی از کارشناسان میگن مافیای قاچاق سوخت، مافیای خودرویی که در ایران سالهاست ریشه داره، باعث این بحران شده. به نظر شما واقعا این نزدیک به واقعیت چه عواملی باعث شدن که این بحران تو بازار سوخت ایران اینقدر عمیق و گسترده بشه؟
به گمان من تاکید شاهزاده رضا پهلوی بر مسئولیت حکومت و نقش شبکه‌های ذی‌نفع در صنعت سوخت و خودرو به واقع اشاره مهمی و واقعی هستش برای اینها. ببینید لااقل مشاهداتی که فکر میکنم شما هم در این مورد موافق باشید، این که یک دولتی اومده به نام پزشکیان که سعی میکنه خودش رو متفاوت با اون سیستم ساختاری سپاه بگذاره و این کاری که میکنه به جای اونها دست رو در جیب مردم داره، واقعا پایین ترین نازل ترین بنزین رو به مردم میده و هیچ گونه مسئولیت هم نمیپذیره. چون اونجایی که باشه مسئولیت پذیر میگه که این رو میده به بخش دیگه. برای همین و همینطور هم اون مافیای سپاه که اونها هستن که در ابعاد بالا میتونن همون بنزینی که قدر مناسب باشه دارن صادر میکنن و بدون اینکه این سیستم بتونه از اینها جلوگیری بکنه.
مهدی مصلحی، ممنون از حضورتون در این گفتگو.
The Israeli military says it has killed a Hamas company commander in a strike on Deir al-Balah. Officials identify the target as Sharif al-Hassanat. The army says al-Hassanat was leading efforts to rebuild the Hamas underground tunnel network and had recently directed attacks against Israeli forces and civilians. Military officials described him as an immediate threat. They say precision munitions and aerial monitoring were used during the operation to minimize civilian casualties. Tensions are rising as Tehran increases its threats across the region. This comes as exchanges between the United Arab Emirates and Iran have been suspended. Meanwhile, NATO is conducting new tests as the alliance prepares for potential conflicts. National security expert Shayan Samieh says Turkey will support its NATO allies if an attack occurs. Samieh warns that such a move would cause the Islamic Republic to lose one of its most significant supporters.
آقای دکتر شایان سمیعی، کارشناس امنیت ملی، درود بر شما و خوش آمدید.
عرض ادب دارم حضور شما بانو و عرض ادب حضور مردم و دلیر ایران. سپاس از دعوتشون.
آقای سمیعی، در آخرین تحولات منطقه جمهوری اسلامی به امارات 2 حمله موشکی انجام داده که یکیش در آبهای سرزمینی امارات و یکیش در آبهای خارج از امارات ساقط شده و بعد از این اتفاق امارات تمام تراکنش‌های مالی که با جمهوری اسلامی داشته را به حالت تعلیق درآورده. از دیدگاه شما، از نگاه شما، چه دلیلی داشته که جمهوری اسلامی یه همچین عملی انجام بده و یک همچین کاری انجام بده؟
ببینید، جمهوری اسلامی از یه استراتژی استفاده میکنه که میگه من در حال حاضر کوشش میکنم هر کسی که در اون لحظه مورد نیاز میتونه منافع من رو عملی بکنه، من با او دوستی میکنم و با او درست رفتار میکنم. فردا اگر اون ببینم که برای من اون نیازمندی منو برطرف نمیکنه، اون تبدیل میشه به یک دشمن من. در حقیقت جمهوری اسلامی داره میگه از امارات استفاده خواهم کرد برای اینکه بتونم پیام رسانی بکنم به ایالات متحده. قدرت نظامی رویارویی با ایالات متحده رو نداره. توانایی رویارویی اطلاعاتی و امنیتی با اسرائیل رو نداره. اما کوشش میکنه با حمله به کشورهای حاشیه خلیج فارس و به ویژه امارات. برای چی امارات؟ چون امارات یک رابطه‌ای خوب با اسرائیل آغاز کرده. حتی در طول دوران جنگ 38 روزه 40 روزه آقای نتانیاهو سفر مخفیانه‌ای به امارات داشته و در حقیقت امارات حتی از سیستم گنبد آهنین اسرائیل هم بهره‌مند شد. پس جمهوری اسلامی داره میگه امارات ممکنه امروز بتونه نیازمندی‌های تراکنش‌های مالی منو انجام بده، پولشویی‌های جمهوری اسلامی رو براش انجام بده، یا در گذشته منبعی بوده که جمهوری اسلامی ذخایر طلای خودش رو منتقل می‌کرده اونجا و ارز و نقدینگی می‌گرفته و برمیگردونده توی مملکت که بتونه به مردم اون ارز رو هزاران برابر قیمت عرضه بکنه و یک درآمدی این وسط داشته باشه برای اهداف تروریستی خودش در سایر جاهای دنیا. میگه من الان از امارات میتونم یک استفاده استراتژیک بکنم. در حقیقت میگه با این حملات تقریبا هم فکر میکنم 90% احتمال این رو میده که حملاتش به هدف نخوره، ولی برای اونها به هدف خوردن موضوع نیست. برای اونها نفس این کار مهمه که به امریکا پیام بدن، که بگن ما این توانایی تداخل نظامی رو داریم. هر چقدر هم که جمهوری اسلامی الان بیاد بگه تنگه هرمز دست ماست، تنگه هرمز رو ما کنترل میکنیم، به خاطر محاصره دریایی که ایالات متحده اونجا انجام داده و گزارشی که فاینانشال تایمز دیروز داد که ایالات متحده به صورت تقریباً روتین شبانه بین 10 تا 12 تا نفتکش رو از اون منطقه عبور میده و حتی نیروی هوایی امریکا در اون منطقه گشت میزنه که اگر پهپاد یا موشک جمهوری اسلامی ارسال بشه اونها رو بتونن نابود بکنن. پس در حقیقت جمهوری اسلامی داره این رو درک میکنه که برتری نظامی نداره. فقط میتونه یک قلدری منطقه‌ای رو اونم برای مدت زمان کوتاهی به رخ بکشه که به امارات متحده عربی، به کویت، به بحرین و به عربستان سعودی پیام بده که شما با ما درگیر نشید. برای اینکه ما علیرغم اینکه توانایی نظامی نداریم ولی توانایی گلالود کردن آب رو داریم و به خاطر همون هم میتونیم زندگی رو برای شما دشوار بکنیم. این استراتژی جمهوری اسلامی میتونه در کوتاه مدت و یا حتی در میان مدت یه مقداری براشون زمان بخره، ولی در دراز مدت امکانش نیست، چون یک لحظه ممکنه که از خواب برخیزن و تمامی اون پایگاه‌ها یا منابعی که ازش موشک‌هاشون رو پرتاب می‌کردن مورد یک یا دو حمله قرار گرفته باشه و کلا نابود شده باشه.
خب آقای سمی، با این وضعیت این کاری که الان کردن به خاطر تراکنش‌های مالی که معلق شده بین ایران و امارات در واقع به ضرر جمهوری اسلامی تموم شده، یعنی حاضرن یه همچین ضرری رو تحمل بکنن با این شرایط اقتصادی ایران؟
آخه ببینید، در صورتی ما میتونیم بگیم که اینا چرا این کار رو میکنن که یک انسجامی در مدیریت، در رهبری مملکت وجود داشته باشه. اما الان اونجا هر کسی ساز خودش رو داره میزنه. پزشکیان میاد میگه بله ما اصلا توانایی عملکرد اقتصادی نداریم، کشتی ها بایستی حالا برن دور بزنن، کلی هزینه ها بالا میره. از اون ور قالیباف میاد یاوه‌گویی میکنه که نخیر تنگه هرمز در دست ماست و امریکا هیچ کاری نمیتونه بکنه. از اون ور وحیدی میره از طریق بارزانی با امریکا پشت صحنه صحبت میکنه. میبینید هیچ انسجامی در کار وجود نداره، با یک صدای واحد صحبت نمیکنن که حداقل دنیا هم بدونه بله اینا واقعا همگیشون از یک روند دارن پیروی میکنن. به همین خاطر به نظر من اون گروهی که الان اسلحه به دست هستن در جمهوری اسلامی، یعنی سپاه پاسداران و به ویژه آدمایی مثل وحیدی، مثل محسن رضایی، مثل اژه‌ای، مثل رادان، اینایی که فقط از طریق اسلحه و سرکوب مردم دارن حکومت رو جلو میبرن، اینا بر این باورن که اقتصاد هیچ اهمیتی براشون نداره، معیشت مردم اونم اصلا اهمیتی نداره، تا زمانی که بتونن خودشون رو سر پا نگه دارن و تا زمانی که بتونن با این ارعاب یه مقداری اون توانایی قدرت نمایی رو از دست ندن، این کار رو انجام میدن. آدمایی هم به مانند پزشکیان و قالیباف، اینا فقط میان یاوه‌گویی میکنن برای اینکه فکر میکنن میتونن افکار عمومی رو تحت تاثیر قرار بدن. یک گروه دیگر هم این وسط هست که داره سعی میکنه برای خودش جایگاهی ایجاد بکنه، اونم اون اصلاح طلبان پیشین هستن که ما دیدیم همین یکی دو روز پیش هم اون سید محمد خاتمی هم آمد و کلی سخنرانی کرد در باب این که مذاکرات چقدر خوبه و مذاکره بایستی انجام بدیم. پس میبینیم هر کی داره فکر میکنه ببینه چگونه میتونه برای خودش دو مرتبه یه جایگاهی ایجاد بکنه. مردم ایران رو کسی بهشون فکر نمیکنه و به همین جهت هم هست که من میتونم این را درک بکنم که چرا جمهوری اسلامی این رفتار نابخردانه رو میکنه، چون تفکری پشتش نیست، فقط نیازمندی به بقا براشون هست.
آقای سمی، فاینانشیال نیوز بر اساس گزارشی که داده از یک منبع آگاه اعلام کرده که جمهوری اسلامی در حال بررسی حمله به پایگاه‌های نظامی آمریکا در اروپا هستش. پیرو صحبت‌هایی که شما الان داشتین، آیا این رعب و وحشت رو میخواد در اروپا هم به وجود بیاره؟ هدفش از این صحبت‌ها و به وجود آوردن یه همچین گفتمانی یا حتی همچین گزارش‌هایی چی هستش؟
جمهوری اسلامی یه استراتژی داره، اونم اینه که میگه اگر که ما توانایی نظامی نداریم، میدان جنگ رو انقدر گسترش بدیم که آب رو گلالود بکنیم، انقدر بقیه افراد رو هم وارد بکنیم که بتونیم یک نتیجه این وسط، حالا حداقل 1 ماه 3 ماه هم زمان بیشتری برای بقای خودمون بخریم. منظورم چیه؟ ببینید در چند روز گذشته ما دیدیم که پارلمان بلغارستان اجازه استفاده از پایگاه هوایی بزمر رو در حومه پایتخت بلغارستان به ایالات متحده داد. اونجا قبلا هم با همدیگه تمرین‌ها و آزمایشات نظامی داشتن. ایالات متحده برای سوختگیری از اونجا اگر بتونه استفاده بکنه، خب برای حملات آتی به جمهوری اسلامی نه فقط به نفع ایالات متحده خواهد بود، بلکه به نفع اسرائیل هم خواهد. پس جمهوری اسلامی آمده به خاطر اون مسئله این رو اعلام کرده که ما میتونیم پایگاه‌های امریکایی رو در اروپا مورد هدف قرار بدیم. اما اگر جمهوری اسلامی داره این رو میگه که به پایگاه‌ها یا به منافع ایالات متحده در سایر کشورهای اروپایی به مانند فرانسه، آلمان، انگلستان، ایتالیا بخواد حمله بکنه، بعد دیگه اون موقع حمله به خاک یک کشور ناتوه. حمله
Iran's chief of staff of the armed forces, Ali Abdullahi, has visited an underground ballistic missile production facility. During the visit, Abdullahi received a briefing on the current status of the country's domestic weapons production. He warned that the enemy cannot fight against the will of the nation.
وقتی آدم وارد اینجا میشه جز کار و تلاش و در کنار اون شوق پیشرفت چیزی نمیبینه. با همت کارکنان و مدیران عالی وزارتخانه توانسته خیلی بهتر از گذشته تجهیزاتی تولید کنه که هم قابلیت‌های بهتری دارن و از کیفیت بالایی برخوردارن، هم به لحاظ کمیت هم بسیار بیشتر از گذشته تونستن این رو به مرحله تولید برسونن.
An IRGC commander-in-chief is speaking out in support of Iran's state broadcaster. Ahmad Vahidi praised the network's performance during the conflict with the United States. The move comes as the broadcaster faces tension with President Masoud Pezeshkian. The network has also drawn criticism from Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. Arabic copies of Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf were found for sale at a newly opened bookstore in London. The books were discovered at the Afik bookstore on Edgware Road, located near the West London Synagogue. Conservative Westminster councillor Elliot Keck says the books were displayed on a main table. Jewish organizations have condemned the discovery as anti-Semitism in Britain reaches record levels. A humanoid robot is breaking records on the track. During a trial competition on Saturday, a robot named Lightning clocked a time of 9.32 seconds in the 100-meter dash. That beats the world record of 9.58 seconds set by Usain Bolt. Reuters reports the robot reached a top speed of 14.5 meters per second. Lightning also took first place in this year's Beijing Humanoid Robot Half Marathon. Here are the top headlines for this hour. In Germany, crowds at Magdeburg Pride are challenging the AfD party ahead of the election under the banner Vote for Love. In Tehran, tributes are being paid to Lieutenant General Nader Jahanbani. Turning to the Strait of Hormuz, about 40 tankers have transited the southern route. Iran has also granted permission for several Iraqi oil tankers to pass through the strait. Syria is condemning an Israeli strike on a civilian vehicle that left several people wounded. Meanwhile, the IDF says intelligence on Turkish plans prompted a strike on a Syrian airbase. The British government says illegal migration to the UK is now a national security and policing threat. In automotive news, Chrysler has issued a recall for some 2021 to 2023 Dodge Durango vehicles due to a problem with the rear spoiler. In Iran, Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, who leads the country's negotiating team, appeared in a new broadcast message, and in Major League Baseball, Jacob Misiorowski pitched the Brewers to a victory over Chris Sale and the Braves. Swedish police are investigating online networks after a teenage girl was killed in a sword attack at a school. Authorities say the attack happened during school hours. Investigators are now looking into whether the suspect was influenced by extremist groups or online communities. Police have not yet released the identity of the attacker. Details on the motive remain unclear as the investigation continues. Russia is upgrading its SHAHED drones with jet engines. These new drones can reach speeds of up to 600 kilometers per hour. Ukrainian officials say their air defenses have struggled to shoot down the faster aircraft during attacks on cities. In response, Ukraine is now developing its own jet-powered interceptor drones to counter the threat. The Israeli military says it has killed a Hamas company commander in a strike in Gaza. Officials identify the man as Sharif al-Hassanat. He was operating in the city of Deir al-Balah. The IDF says al-Hassanat was working to restore Hamas tunnel infrastructure and was planning new attacks. Military officials state he posed an immediate threat to their forces and was eliminated. Political analyst Ben Sabti says the government is laying the groundwork for the next attack. In a recent interview, Sabti argues that the administration's own actions are creating the conditions for further violence. These comments come amid ongoing tensions involving the IRGC.
یک نماینده های مجلسی نمیدونم از کجا یهو پیدا شدن، یهو آدم شدن و میان حرف از خروج از NPT میزنن. مردم پول ندارن برای غذا، اینا حرف NPT میزنن. من فکر کنم اینها آخر یک اشتباهاتی میکنن که خودشون با دست خودشون اون حمله بعدی رو یا یک عملیات بعدی رو بر ضد کل رژیم به وجود میارن. غرور بدترین دشمن اینهاست و اینها اشتباهاتشون خواهند کرد و اون اتفاقی که در سال 88 میلادی یا 67 ایرانی افتاد که رفسنجانی و رفت به خمینی گفت ما باید آتش بس کنیم، اون اتفاق نخواهد افتاد. نیست همچین کسی در ایران. اینقدر اینها مغرور هستن که حتی آدم‌های یک کم عاقلشون رو گذاشتن کنار. و ما می‌بینیم محسن رضایی که اون موقع دم از بمب اتم و سلاح لیزری میزده الان شده یک فرد برجسته. ببینید چقدر آدم کم دارن که اینو برگردوندن. اینقدر وضع جمهوری اسلامی خرابه. یک توخالی و پوشالی هست این موجود. برای همین من فکر کنم اینها اشتباهشون رو بکنن و خودشون بلای سر خودشون بیارن. مردم در اون موقع من مطمئنم در این 3 ماه آینده خیزش خواهند کرد، چون اوضاع داخلی بسیار خرابه. محدودیت ها من میشنوم بیشتر دارن میشن، از نظر اینترنت، از نظر حجاب، همه چی وقتی براشون خوب بود اجازه میدادن، حالا یهو داره ورق برمیگرده. مردم ایران مردم شجاعی هستن، مردم با اراده‌ای هستن. من مطمئنم اونها روی صندلی نخواهند نشست و حق خودشون رو مطالبه خواهند کرد.
Talks in Islamabad have reached a deadlock. The discussions focused on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and were led by Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, the Speaker of the Islamic Consultative Assembly. Officials say the stalemate comes despite an initial agreement. Meanwhile, some regime supporters are criticizing the move. A political expert told the news outlet DEJ that some loyalists now view Ghalibaf as a traitor. These critics claim Ghalibaf and official Abbas Araghchi sought a deal with the United States, while others were calling for retaliation on behalf of Ali Khamenei. A woman in Iran is sharing her story after being attacked with acid. Marzio says she was targeted because her hijab was considered inappropriate. Her case has sparked a new conversation about the difference between Iranian culture and the rules enforced by the country's theocracy. Some critics say Western politicians who cover their hair during visits to Iran are mistakenly respecting a religious government, rather than the actual culture of the people. A humanoid robot is breaking records on the track. During a trial competition on Saturday, a robot named Lightning clocked a time of 9.32 seconds in the 100-meter dash. That beats the world record of 9.58 seconds set by Usain Bolt. Reuters reports the robot reached a top speed of 14.5 meters per second. Lightning also took first place in this year's Beijing Humanoid Robot Half Marathon. Republican candidate Mike Rogers is highlighting literacy rates in Michigan as a key pillar of his campaign. Rogers says 2/3 of fourth graders in the state cannot read at their grade level. He warns that students who struggle to read face a 70% chance of ending up on welfare or in prison. Rogers says he has a plan to improve reading levels for students moving from 3rd to 4th grade. He claims his focus on these core issues is drawing support from voters who find his opponent, Abdul El-Sayed, too extreme.
Well, it's really two-track. One, we've actually been running a campaign on real issues that are affecting Michiganders. 2/3 of our fourth graders can't read in the fourth grade. You have a 70% chance of going to prison or being on welfare if that's the case. We have a plan to help the states get kids reading from 3rd to 4th grade. We have a housing plan that the Detroiters that we've been talking to love. We're working on getting manufacturing back. We want to put shop back in every high school so we can raise up the next generation of skilled trades. We're talking about things that matter in their lives. And we're also pointing out just how extreme Abdul is. I mean, again, when people think about them taking their private health care, and by the way, Medicare for All and the bills that do it, that's exactly what it is. He can't hide from that. He can't hide from the fact that when a terrorist filled his car with explosives and tried to kill 130 kids at a synagogue school, and he said, hurt people want to hurt people, and he could understand that. You can, that's who you are, and that's who he is. And I tell you what, we need people to understand who he is, not his fancy change every 30 seconds his opinion on social media. That's why this guy's just too extreme for this day.
Mike Rogers, thank you so much. Well, people are destroying flock.
Iraqi President Nizar Ahmadi says Iraq will not allow its territory to be used for attacks against Iran or any other nation. Speaking Saturday, Ahmadi stressed Baghdad's determination to stay out of the conflict involving its neighbor. He stated that this is not Iraq's war, noting that the country is exhausted by years of fighting. Tensions are rising in Iran following comments from Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf and President Masoud Pezeshkian. Both men discussed the country's struggling economy and the possibility of reaching a new agreement with the United States. The Parliament Communications Center is now pushing back. Officials there say Speaker Ghalibaf's remarks were taken out of context. The dispute raises questions about whether disagreements over U.S. diplomacy are intensifying within the Iranian government. Farnoosh Amir Shahi has the details.
دلیلش این بوده که واکنش نسبت به صحبت‌های آقای غالیباف و آقای پزشکیان هر دو زیاد بوده در داخل ایران. مثلا روزنامه جوان که نزدیک به سپاه پاسدارانه مقاله نوشته بود و در اون گفته بود که از نظر اونها آمریکا نمیخواد جنگ رو پایان بده. در نتیجه صحبت‌های آقای غالیباف رو ساده انگارانه خونده بود و گفته بود که اون چه که گفته ساده کردن مسئله صلح و باید که از حرفاش برگرده. یا محمود نوویان نماینده نزدیک به عضو جبهه پایداری به صحبت‌های پزشکیان واکنش نشون داده بود و گفته بود این حرف‌هایی که زده نوعی تسلیمه و داره پالس میفرسته به گفته او به دشمن و حرف‌های مناسبی نیست به دلیل اینکه ما بعد از موضوع قدرت صحبت بکنیم. به همین دلیل هم خب امروز روابط عمومی مجلس بیانیه‌ای داده و گفته که صحبت‌های محمد باقر غالیباف تقطیع شده. او اگر که گفته که از اقتصاد صحبت کرده قبلش گفته ما مقامات و فرماندهان نظامی هر هزینه‌ای رو می‌کنیم که عزت ایران حفظ بشه، ولی در حوزه اقتصادی به اقتصاددان‌ها گفته شما هم فرماندهان اقتصادی هستید و اینها یک پکیجه و نمیشه که اینها رو از هم جدا کرد. ولی به هر حال این صحبت‌ها واکنش‌های زیادی در داخل ایران داشته چون که به نوعی نشون دهنده وضعیت اقتصادی داخل ایران.
چقدر نشان دهنده همچنین اختلافات داخلی است در داخل خود حکومت بر سر جنگ یا توافق با آمریکا؟
داره به تدریج هی بروز بیشتری پیدا میکنه این اختلافات و به نظر میاد که نقطه اشتراک این اختلافات این نیستش که آیا جنگ ادامه پیدا بکنه یا نکنه، اینه که جنگ چطور پایان پیدا کنه و چه زمانی باشه و چه به دست بیاد. مقامات دولت گزارش هایی که میدن مبنی بر اینکه درآمدهای نفتی ندارن، درآمدهای مالیاتی ندارن و وضعیت اقتصادی بحران زده است، اونها بیشتر به این سمت دارن میرن که ادامه این روند هزینه‌های